Pruitt here with the Idaho Dispatch, and welcome. This is the recap, episode number 5. And before we get started into Facebook's always changing stuff on me here. Before we get started into the episode and recapping some of our recent articles, a couple things. You'll notice that my eyes are probably going to be glowing purple or bluish, something like that. Anyway, my regular glasses broke, and these are the glasses I use when I'm working on a computer, but typically not when I'm going live because of the purplish blue glare. So if you're wondering, that's what that glare is. It's supposed to help keep your eyes from getting damaged long term. But my other ones broke, and I'm not really sure how, but they broke, so we don't have those anymore. And then I also don't have my box lights working right now, and so the lighting may not be as bright as you are normally used to seeing. Anyway, with that said, this episode and this particular segment is brought to you by CUNA Healthcare. CUNA Healthcare has been one of our longtime supporters here at the Dispatch for as long as we've been around. And you can go to cunahealthcare.com to learn more. Dr. Jody Harrington, family nurse practitioner, is the head of CUNA Healthcare, and I'm just going to read you a little snippet about the services that they offer there. It says, at CUNA Healthcare, we understand how important it is to have a primary care provider that is compassionate and understanding. Through years of experience and a passion for total patient care, CUNA Healthcare is here to ensure that all your health-related needs are met with a personal touch. We provide a local and caring answer to your healthcare needs. So if you are in the CUNA Melba area, be sure to check out cunahealthcare.com and Jody Harrington. All right. So we're going to cover 4 articles today. We are going to talk about a bill that would allow illegal immigrants to have a restricted driver's license, essentially. We're going to talk a little bit about that. They haven't actually done the full public hearing on that. We're going to talk about a couple bills, a bill and a resolution, technically, that would allow the legislature to call themselves back into session. We're going to talk about a bill that would ban protesting outside of someone's home. It's called targeted picketing in the bill. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the West Ada School Board and some other information that we've been trying to uncover and discuss about kind of what is happening on that end. So if at any time during the broadcast, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put those over in the comments, and we will try our best to answer something that may be missing. We've got Katie on, says good morning. We've got Jeanette on, says thank you for all you do, Greg. And we got Gary on, and he says what's up. So good morning, still morning to all of you, and thank you for tuning into the recap. So again, please be sure to share the video. Be sure to become a subscriber of the Dispatch if you're not already. A lot of people hate the mainstream media. The best way to take it to them is to support platforms that are trying to bring you news without all the hyperbole, without all the personal bias, right? I have my own opinions and thoughts on a lot of these subjects. It's political subjects. But when we write our articles, we go back through over and over and over again to try and remove anything that even remotely sounds like personal bias on our part, okay? And we're getting better at it, so I don't have to go through it so many times. But that is the objective as we're writing this stuff. And then we always try to reach out to both sides of an issue. And sometimes it may end up being in 2 articles where we finally get to both sides, and sometimes most of the time we try to get it into the first article. So you'll notice that as you're reading through these articles. All these articles that we're going to discuss today can be found on IdahoDispatch.com. And they're all in kind of different sections depending on the topic at hand, okay? Also, by the way, if you're interested in advertising with Idaho Dispatch, we'd love to have more advertisers and people supporting the platform. You can go, send an email to info@idahoddispatch.com, and we'll kind of break down the details for you guys on potential advertising options and stuff. And sorry, one last thing. I keep forgetting. We got all this new stuff that we're trying and trying to come out with. We are looking at possibly, because we are an online news organization only, we're statewide, so we can't really do... we don't have the resources to start funding daily newspapers all across the state. That's not a thing. But we are looking at possibly doing some sort of, for those who are doing the $9.97 a month, doing some sort of quarterly, possibly monthly hard copy Idaho Dispatch newspaper. It's a little bit cheaper than I actually thought it would be, based on what we're looking at. But again, that's a lot of time and effort, and we really need a lot more subscribers to make that feasible. Compared to what we have. We have 94 monthly subscribers right now. We got to get that number a lot higher, and a lot of those are at the $2.97 a month, which is just kind of the basic supporter level for the Idaho Dispatch. So let's jump into the first article here, and I've got two screens here, so I'm not going to be looking straight necessarily all the time. So if you see me looking off to the side, it's because I'm looking over on my other screen at this article here. Maybe I'll just move it. I'll just move it right here. Then I can't see the comments though. That's all right. All right. So again, if you guys have comments about any of this stuff, please feel free to let me know. So the first bill that was introduced, it was introduced last week. And remember, there's an introductory hearing, which means a bill basically gets brought before the committee, and the committee decides, yes, we want to have a public hearing on this, or no, we don't. And this one had an introductory hearing, and it passed through the introductory hearing and will be scheduled potentially at some point in the Senate Transportation Committee. And just because it makes it through an introductory hearing does not mean that it gets a public hearing. There are a lot of bills that get heard in an introductory hearing, or we used to call it a print hearing, and a lot of those bills don't ever get a public hearing. The chairman ultimately has the power to say yes or no on any bill that they will allow to be heard or not heard. Okay, and so kind of keep that in mind, as this may go through for a potential public hearing, but it may never get one, or it may. We really don't know at this point. Okay, so the bill in question, and if you go to the article, is Senate Bill 1132, and it was introduced last week, and it was introduced by Senator Jim Guthrie, who's a Republican from McCammon. Okay, and the bill, he says, based on, so I remember he introduced this bill last year, and it didn't really go anywhere last year, but he introduced this bill last year, and from what I remember, and this isn't in the part of the article, this is why we do the recap, so I can give you some additional details that we didn't necessarily put in the article. But in there, he talks about, anybody who is here illegally, they're here illegally, they can't get a driver's license, and if you can't get a driver's license, you can't get car insurance. And so he said his goal is to provide a restricted driver's license card, which he says would not allow people to vote. It would allow them to drive, and it would allow them to get car insurance. And from his perspective, if you get in a crash and they don't have a driver's license and they don't have car insurance, then everything's kind of on you. Where if you allow them to get a driver's license and then they can go get car insurance, then they would be able to cover some of the damages. So that again, that's from his perspective on what I remember him talking about last year. So we'll have to wait for a public hearing to hear if there is one, what both sides are saying about that issue. And certainly we've seen in the comments already from the article we posted, there was a lot of comments. I don't know, it was a ridiculous amount of comments that were on there. Let's see if I can find the total amount. Yeah, it was like 175 comments already. And a lot of the comments that were opposed to the whole driver's license idea were about, twofold. Number one, they're here illegally, so they shouldn't be allowed to have anything. And then the other one was if they're already breaking the law, then why are they going to go out and get a license or car insurance in the first place? Okay, so that's kind of the opposition that we've seen in the comments so far to this particular idea. So again, the bill has not had a public hearing. If it does, we will try to keep you guys updated. And if you noticed, we have a tracker that we have, and we'll kind of update that article once a week at least to let you guys know all the bills that we write about. We're going to keep those in one article, and that way you can follow which issues that we have written about and where those particular pieces of legislation are in the legislative process. All right, so that covers that one. I didn't see any questions in here so far about that particular bill. Let's just open this back up and see. Yeah, no questions. Okay. Next bill is there are two pieces of legislation floating in the Senate right now. They're both in the Senate. One is Senate Bill 112, and the other one is, I want to make sure I get HDR 1, okay? And so these two pieces of legislation have to deal with the legislature having the ability to call themselves back into session. And this was a very big topic of discussion over the last year. A number of legislators wanted to come back into session, and there was a lot of debate about whether they already could do that. Some felt that they already could do that under how the Constitution was written. Others said that it wasn't possible, and the leadership in the House and the Senate both said it wasn't possible. And so nobody came back until the governor called them back in August of last year, called them back into session. And the way that the current Constitution is written, when the governor calls them back in, he kind of has the ability, based on what we're looking at in the Constitution, to set what is discussed and a number of other things. So the governor really gets to kind of dictate how the special, they call it extraordinary session, is. And so our goal was to, try and put two things in one article that we know are important to you guys, and at least as a topic of discussion, because we've seen this brought up a lot in the comments and a lot of what people want to see. And so both of these really have to pass in order for it to work, because there has to be a change to the state constitution. And in order to do that, you have to have a joint resolution. Well, HJR 1 is the joint resolution that will change the Idaho Constitution if 2/3 in both chambers approve it and then the voters approve it. Okay, it doesn't go to the governor. The resolution itself does not go to the governor. It has to be approved by you guys. So at least until 2022, we're looking at November of 2022 when this would all really go down, and you guys would vote on it. If the voters vote for HJR 1, assuming it makes it to the ballot, then and approve it, then Senate Bill 112 would kick in. Okay, and Senate Bill 112 has to have a simple majority in the House, a simple majority in the Senate, and then it has to be approved by the governor. Okay, so both of those things kind of have to work in tandem. And from the hearing, the biggest discussion, there was some Senator Grant Burgoyne, he is a Democrat from Boise, had some concerns about how the language was written and certain phrases and stuff. And so they kind of went back and forth about that. But the main topic of discussion seemed to be the limit, the threshold for how many legislators were needed to call themselves back into session, and then kind of what the process would be after that. So Senate Bill 112 covers the process. Like, here's what needs to happen. If we're going to call ourselves back in, then the Senate Pro Tem, who is Senator Chuck Winder from Boise, Republican from Boise, and then the Speaker of the House, right, which is currently Speaker Scott Bedke, a Republican. I want to say Burley, but I might have that wrong. I will pull up, remember off the top of my head. But anyway, so those two would basically get together, say, here's what the legislature needs to discuss, and then they would go out and get a petition from legislators on who agrees to come back into a special session. And then there would be limitations in that special session on what could and could not be discussed. And so we are looking at 60%, right? 60% right now is what the legislature would have to get. Yeah, 60% is what they would have to get to come back in. So 60% in both chambers would have to agree to come in and do a special session. Okay, so there were some legislators that wanted less, according to what some of the senators were saying in the hearing. Some people wanted it at 30% or 40% or 50%. And then some wanted it higher. They wanted it at 2/3, right? So they wanted more than the 60%. And so what Senator Winder seemed to indicate in the hearing was that between the House and the Senate, they finally came to an agreement on 60%. That's what we would need, the legislature would need to come back into session if they were outside of their regular operating session, which is, typically speaking, the beginning of January through kind of the end of March. And so if they were going to come back in July because some big event happened or something huge, needed to be taken up immediately by the legislature, then they would be able to bring themselves back in without having to wait for the governor to do it. Okay? So both of those are now in the full Idaho Senate. And HJR 1 has already passed through the House. That's House Joint Resolution 1. A joint resolution means both chambers kind of have to agree on this change. And so it's already passed through the House. It had a number of Republicans, I think, that had opposed it. And I think all the Democrats in the House, if I remember correctly, also opposed it. But it had enough to pass through. And so now HJR 1 is in the full Senate. And I don't believe it's going to come up today. But I could be wrong. It just kind of depends on how fast they get through the debates. Okay. Any questions? I don't see any questions in there yet. All right. So next topic is a bill by Representative Greg Chaney, a Republican out of Caldwell, and Representative Brooke Green, a Democrat out of Boise. And the bill is HB 195, which deals with what they are calling targeted picketing. And this has already passed through the committee and going to the full House, and it passed on a vote of 11-4. So what they have both said was the reason for the bill was because of protests that had taken place outside of the let's see, there was in I think April of last year, a Meridian police officer's home had protesters outside of there. Some of the Boise City Council members had protesters outside of their homes, drawing sidewalk chalk and stuff. And then also some of the Central District Health, both elected officials and I think the doctor who's on there, I can't remember his name, also had protesters outside their home. And so the goal of the bill, according to the sponsors, was to prohibit targeted picketing, which means that you cannot go outside of somebody's home, and it doesn't cover just elected officials. I believe it covers picketing anybody. Let's see. So I'm just going to read part of the SOP, okay, which is called the Statement of Purpose. So here's what the Statement of Purpose says. In part, any person who engages in picketing or otherwise demonstrates in front of a person's residence or dwelling with the intent to harass, harm, annoy, or alarm another person commits targeted picketing. And so a lot of the discussion amongst the legislators in there was what those definitions mean. Who determines what is annoying to somebody or alarming to somebody, and what if somebody is doing their government business, for instance, at their home. And so that's kind of what all of that stuff covers. And again, there's no, and Representative Chaney also, he did what's called House Rule 80, which means that because people were picketing outside of his house, they said, well, sorry, 1 second here. Yeah, anyway, they said that he would abstain from voting in there. Okay, so that bill we'll kind of keep you guys updated on. I've got to brush through this last one here real quick. Let's see, the West Ada School Board, again, one of their school board members had a conflict of interest, and this was kind of interesting because he said that he had a conflict of interest at a board meeting, but then didn't really disclose. It was with a public relations firm called Red Sky, and he didn't really say what it was. So we tried to reach out to him and reach out to Red Sky and say, hey, what is this conflict of interest? Because there was already a signed contract, there was an invoice, money had been paid, and it wasn't until February of this year that he disclosed that he had a conflict of interest, even though everything had happened in like November and December of last year. And so we're still digging into this, guys, trying to figure out, hey, it may not be a big deal. We really don't know. We have no idea because they won't tell us what this conflict of interest was, but we definitely want to try to understand that a little bit better. So anyway, that's kind of all of everything that we have now. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to share this. Get subscribed to Idaho Dispatch at idaho.dispatch.com/subscribe if you guys want to help us grow, continue to find new people to help us and subscribing to the Idaho Dispatch today. So that's all I've got for now, guys. I appreciate your time. Take care. And if you have any questions, feel free to let us know.